I was escorted out like a criminal, my daughter's medical bills crushing me. But when the CEO himself chased me down in the parking lot and said those three words, "She's my wife," everything changed. They fired the wrong woman. And what happened next? They never saw it coming. Before we dive into this unbelievable story, if you love tales of karma and justice, hit that like button right now and subscribe so you never miss these incredible stories. Trust me, you'll want to stay until the very end for this twist. You know that feeling when your entire world collapses in the span of 15 minutes, when everything you've worked for, every sacrifice you've made, every sleepless night just evaporates like it never mattered. That was my Tuesday afternoon. My name is Claire Hudson, and this is the story of how I lost everything and discovered I'd already lost so much more years before without even knowing it. Let me take you back to that morning. It started like any other day. I woke up at 5:30, made breakfast for my 7-year-old daughter Lily, packed her lunch with the little heart-shaped notes I always included, and got her ready for school. Lily has this beautiful smile that lights up every room she enters, but lately, that smile had been dimmer. She was born with a rare heart condition, and we were scheduled for a critical procedure in 2 weeks. The medical bills were astronomical. I'm talking about the kind of numbers that make your stomach drop every time you see them. I'd been working at Sterling Tech Corporation for 6 years. 6 years of loyalty, of staying late, of taking on extra projects, of being the person everyone could count on. I was a mid-level project coordinator. Nothing glamorous, but it paid the bills. Well, most of them. I worked double shifts when I could, picked up freelance work on weekends, and still, I was drowning in debt. But I never complained. I kept my head down, did my work, and stayed invisible. In a corporate environment, sometimes invisible is safe. But then Valerie Cross arrived 3 months ago. She was the new department head, brought in from some fancy firm in Chicago, with a reputation for restructuring. The moment she walked into our office with her designer heels clicking against the floor and her cold, calculating eyes scanning the room like we were all expendable inventory, I knew things were about to change. And I was right. Valerie had this way of making you feel worthless with just a glance. She brought in her own team of favorites, younger people who laughed at her jokes and agreed with everything she said. The rest of us became targets. My coworker Nina warned me during lunch one day, whispering across the table like we were in some spy thriller. "She's building cases against people, Claire, making up reasons to fire them and replace them with cheaper workers. You need to watch your back." I remember stirring my coffee and responding with what I thought was wisdom at the time. "I just need to keep my head down and work hard. I've been here 6 years. They can't just fire me for no reason." Oh, how naive I was. 2 weeks before everything fell apart, I was assigned the Garrison project. It was a major client pitch worth $4.2 million, the kind of project that could define someone's career. I threw everything into it. While Lily slept, I worked. While she was at school, I worked. I poured 6 years of experience and every creative bone in my body into that presentation. At 11 o'clock on a Monday night, I hit send on the email to Valerie with the completed presentation attached. I remember feeling this wave of relief wash over me. I'd done it. It was good. Maybe, just maybe, this would secure my position. The next morning, I walked into the office with my usual coffee, ready to discuss the presentation. Valerie called me into her office before I even reached my desk. The moment I saw her expression, my stomach knotted. She was sitting behind her desk with Gordon Smith from HR beside her, and there was something in their faces that screamed danger. "Claire, we have a serious problem," Valerie said, her voice dripping with false concern. "The Garrison presentation, you never submitted it." I felt like I'd been punched. "What? No, I sent it to you last night, at 11. Check your email." She turned her computer screen toward me with theatrical precision. "There's nothing here. And I've checked the shared drive. Nothing. We have a meeting with the client in 3 hours. And we have no presentation because you failed to deliver." My hands were shaking as I pulled out my phone, frantically scrolling through my sent emails. There it was, sent to Valerie Cross, 11:03 p.m., with the attachment clearly listed. Look, here's the proof. I sent it. Something's wrong with the system. Gordon leaned forward, his expression grave. Claire, anyone can fabricate a screenshot or manipulate their phone. We have no record of any submission. What we do have is a pattern of missed deadlines and poor performance. What pattern? I've never missed a deadline in 6 years. But they weren't listening. The decision had already been made. I realized then, standing in that office with my phone clutched in my trembling hand, that this was a setup. This was never about the presentation. This was about getting rid of me, and they'd manufactured the perfect excuse. "We're terminating your employment effective immediately," Valerie said, and I swear I saw the corner of her mouth twitch into a smile. For gross negligence and corporate sabotage. The next 30 minutes were the most humiliating of my life. Security was called. I was given 10 minutes to clear my desk while everyone watched. I could feel their eyes on me as I walked through the office, escorted like I'd committed some terrible crime. Nina caught my eye and mouthed, "I'm so sorry," but she didn't move from her desk. No one did. They were all too scared for their own jobs. In the elevator going down, I stared at my reflection in the metal doors. I looked like a ghost. My access badge was deactivated before I even reached the ground floor. When I tried to scan out of the parking garage, the red light blinked at me mockingly. The security guard had to manually let me through, and the pity in his eyes almost broke me. I made it to my car before the tears came. I sat there in the dimly lit parking garage, hands gripping the steering wheel, trying to breathe through the panic. My phone buzzed. It was the hospital. Lily's procedure was scheduled for next Friday, and they needed $8,000 up front, or they'd have to postpone it. $8,000. I checked my bank account. $340. That was it. That was all I had between my daughter and a potentially life-threatening delay in her treatment. For the first time in 6 years of struggling, of fighting, of staying strong for Lily, I completely fell apart. I put my head on the steering wheel and sobbed. What was I going to do? How was I going to tell my daughter that Mommy lost her job? How was I going to explain that her procedure might have to wait because I couldn't afford it? That's when I heard the knock on my window. I looked up, vision blurred with tears, and saw a man standing beside my car. Behind him was a black luxury sedan, the kind that costs more than I'd make in 5 years. He was wearing an expensive suit, perfectly tailored, and there was something about the way he carried himself that screamed power and authority. My first thought was that I was about to be told to move my car because I was having a breakdown in some executive's parking spot. I rolled down my window, trying to wipe away the tears. "I'm sorry, I'm leaving. I just need a minute." "Mrs. Hudson?" he said, and his voice was deep, calm, almost gentle. "Claire Hudson." I stared at him, confused and defensive. "Who are you? If this is about the firing, I didn't do anything wrong. They set me up." He held up his hand, and something in his expression made me stop. "I'm Nathaniel Pierce. I own this company, the CEO, the actual CEO of Sterling Tech Corporation." I'd never met him. He worked from the global headquarters in New York, and our regional office was just one small piece of his empire. I'd seen his picture on the company website, but seeing him in person was completely different. There was an intensity in his eyes, a familiarity that made no sense. "I need you to come back inside with me," he said. I shook my head, fresh tears threatening. I was just fired, humiliated in front of everyone. "I'm not going back in there." "Claire," he said, and the way he said my name sent chills down my spine. Like he knew me. Like he'd said my name 1,000 times before. "There's been a terrible mistake." Yeah, the mistake was trusting that I'd be treated fairly. "You're not just an employee." He said it loudly, clearly, and I noticed a few people walking to their cars nearby had stopped to listen. "You're my wife." Time stopped. I genuinely thought I'd misheard him. "What?" I've never met you before in my life. Are you insane? He leaned closer to my window, his voice dropping to an urgent whisper. I know this sounds crazy. I know you have no reason to trust me. But if you give me 1 hour, just 1 hour, I promise I can explain everything. And I can help with Lily's medical bills. My blood turned to ice. How do you know about my daughter? Please, he said. And there was something in his eyes. Desperation, pain, recognition. 1 hour, that's all I'm asking. Maybe it was the shock. Maybe it was the fact that I had nothing left to lose. Maybe it was the way he said Lily's name, like it meant something to him. But I got out of my car and followed Nathaniel Pierce back into the building that had just destroyed my life. We didn't go back to my old floor. Instead, he led me to the executive level, a place I'd never been in 6 years. The conference room was all glass and chrome, with a view of the city that took my breath away. He gestured for me to sit, ordered coffee, and then pulled out a file folder that looked like it had been handled 1,000 times. 8 years ago, he began, sitting across from me. I was in a severe car accident, head trauma. I was in a coma for 2 weeks, and when I woke up, I'd lost 2 years of memories. The doctors called it retrograde amnesia. I couldn't remember anything from a specific period of my life. He slid a photograph across the table. I picked it up with shaking hands. It showed a younger version of Nathaniel, with his arm around a woman who looked exactly like me. We were laughing, clearly in love, standing on a beach at sunset. I stared at the photo, trying to find some spark of recognition, some memory, anything. Nothing came. That's impossible, I whispered. He slid over another document, a marriage certificate, my name, his name, dated 7 years ago. Then more photos, us at a wedding, us in what looked like our apartment, and then one that made my heart stop completely. It was me, pregnant, with Nathaniel's hand on my belly, both of us glowing with happiness. Lily, I breathed. Our daughter, he said softly. Claire, someone made you disappear. After my accident, I was told you died. I was shown false death certificates, false accident reports. My therapist, who I now know was being paid off, convinced me that my memories of you were trauma-induced fabrications. And you, he paused, his jaw tightening. What were you told? My mind was reeling, but fragments were starting to surface. Things I'd never questioned before suddenly felt wrong. I was told you abandoned us, I said slowly. When I told you I was pregnant, you left, said you wanted nothing to do with us. I had documentation, a letter you supposedly wrote. That I never wrote, he finished. Claire, we were both manipulated. Someone wanted us separated and went to extraordinary lengths to make sure we'd never look for each other. Before I could process this, there was a knock on the door. Valerie and Gordon were escorted in by security, both looking pale and terrified. Behind them came a man Nathaniel introduced as his head of security. Show them, Nathaniel said coldly. What came next was like watching a thriller unfold in real time. Valerie Cross wasn't just some new department head. She was the niece of Patricia Sterling, Nathaniel's former business partner, who'd been pushed out of the company 8 years ago for embezzling millions. Patricia had spent years planning her revenge, and when she discovered through some database that I worked for Sterling Tech, she saw her perfect opportunity. Valerie had been planted in the company specifically to target me. The deleted emails, the sabotaged presentation, the firing, all orchestrated to destroy me and, by extension, hurt Nathaniel when the truth eventually came out. The goal was to create a scandal. Billionaire CEO's company fires vulnerable single mother, his own wife that he'd supposedly abandoned. The media would have torn him apart. But here's the twist no one saw coming, not even Nathaniel. As the security chief laid out the evidence, showing messages between Valerie and Patricia, something he said made Nathaniel go completely still. Patricia Sterling hadn't just embezzled money. She'd been the one who arranged his accident 8 years ago. She'd tampered with his car's brakes, intending to kill him because he'd discovered her theft. The accident was meant to be fatal, but he survived. And when he did, Patricia pivoted. She bribed his medical team, altered his records, and paid people to convince him I was dead. She'd orchestrated the entire 8 years of our separation. And the reason? Patricia had been obsessed with Nathaniel. She'd wanted him for herself, and I was in the way. The room fell silent as this revelation sank in. Valerie started crying, claiming she didn't know the full extent of her aunt's crimes. Gordon, who'd been Patricia's inside man for years, looked like he might be sick. Police were called. Arrests were made. And through it all, I sat there, watching my life rewrite itself in real time. "I still don't remember you," I finally said when we were alone again. "Any of this. It feels like you're describing someone else's life." Nathaniel nodded slowly. "I know, and I'm not asking you to remember. I'm not asking you to suddenly feel something you don't feel. I'm just asking for a chance to help Lily get the treatment she needs. A chance to, maybe eventually, help you remember. Or if the memories never come back, a chance to start over. Whatever you need, Claire." Lily's surgery was scheduled for the following week. Nathaniel paid for everything without hesitation. He set up a trust fund for her future care. He gave me time, space, and resources to process everything. But what surprised me most was how natural he was with Lily when he met her, and how natural she was with him. "Mama," she said, after his first visit to the hospital, "he feels like home. Is that weird? Maybe children remember what adults forget. Maybe somewhere in her DNA, she recognized her father." I agreed to see a therapist who specialized in recovered memories. Over the following weeks, I experienced flashes, brief, fragmented images that felt like dreams. A beach proposal, dancing in a small apartment, Nathaniel's laugh, his hand in mine. I found old journals in a storage unit I'd forgotten I had, pages filled with our love story in my own handwriting. I read about how we met at a charity gala, how he was nothing like the wealthy men I'd expected, how he made me laugh until I cried. I read about our wedding, about the day I found out I was pregnant, about the future we'd planned. The memories themselves didn't fully return, but the feelings did, like recognizing a song you haven't heard in years. 3 months after that terrible day in the parking garage, I was offered my old job back, with a promotion and full back pay. I declined. Instead, I started my own consulting firm, specializing in project management. Nathaniel offered support and mentorship, but never money I didn't earn. He respected every boundary I set, never pushed, never demanded anything. We had dinner every week, the three of us. Slowly, carefully, we built something new, not a reconstruction of what we'd lost, but something different, something honest. Lily thrived after her surgery. The procedure was a complete success. Watching her run and play without the fatigue that had haunted her for years made everything else fade into the background. She started calling Nathaniel Dad about 4 months in. He cried when she said it the first time. As for Valerie and Patricia, justice was swift. Patricia was convicted of attempted murder, fraud, bribery, and about a dozen other charges. She's serving 25 years. Valerie cooperated with prosecutors and received a lighter sentence for her role. Gordon lost everything and is facing his own legal battles. It's been a year now since that day. Last week, Lily had her follow-up appointment, and the doctors said she's completely healthy. We celebrated with ice cream, the three of us sitting in the park, watching the sunset. Nathaniel's hand was next to mine on the bench. I looked at it for a long moment, then slowly, I reached over and laced my fingers through his. He looked at me, surprised, hope and fear mixing in his expression. "I may not remember falling in love with you the first time," I said softly, "but I think I'm doing it again." He smiled, and something in that smile sparked a memory. Not a full memory, just a feeling. The certainty that I'd seen that smile before, that it had once been my whole world. Maybe it would be again. Sometimes the universe tears us away from what we love most to show us just how strong we really are. I lost 8 years, lost memories, lost the life I should have had, but I never lost myself. And in the end, karma made sure the truth came out. Love found a way back, even through amnesia, manipulation, and corporate conspiracy. Because real love doesn't need memory. It exists beyond it, deeper than it, stronger than anything that tries to destroy it. If this story moved you, smash that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear that justice prevails. Subscribe and hit the notification bell, because I share incredible true-to-life stories like this every week. Drop a comment telling me, would you have trusted Nathaniel in that parking lot? Would you have walked back into that building? Let's discuss in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and remember, your story isn't over yet. The best chapter might be just around the corner. Sometimes what seems like the end is really just the beginning of something extraordinary. See you in the next story.